Miss Eliza Harroway had long accepted that dignity was a luxury her household could no longer afford. Yet nothing humbled her quite like the faded lilac dress her father insisted she wear that afternoon. It clung to her like an apology. Its frayed cuffs, its threadbare skirt, its color drained to a mournful gray lavender. She paused on the stairwell, wishing the shadows might conceal her, but the housemaids noticed at once. Their whispers skittered across the hall like dry leaves. "Poor thing," one murmured, "dressed so for a guest of consequence." Eliza pretended not to hear, though the words pierced with needle-like precision. She forced her chin high. Pride might be thin, but she would not surrender it entirely. Her father's summons had been brisk, offering no explanation beyond a tense, "You will receive our visitor with proper grace." She had imagined him expecting another retired officer, the sort who smelled of salt air and brandy. She could endure that. But when she entered the drawing room, Captain Harroway was pacing with a solemnity that unsettled her more than any worn dress could. "Eliza," he said, tugging at his cuffs, "you will recall your mother's poise. Our guest is significant." The reminder deepened her unease. Her mother had been elegance itself. Eliza, by contrast, felt stitched together from shortcomings. She moved to the window for air, just as a sleek black carriage turned into the drive. The horses' harnesses glinted even under the winter pall. Whoever approached was no ordinary acquaintance. Her father inhaled sharply. "He arrives." Eliza readied herself, but nothing could have prepared her for the man who stepped down from the carriage with the quiet certainty of a figure carved from authority itself. His coat was a stroke of midnight, his bearing effortlessly regal. As he crossed the threshold, removing his hat, the winter light revealed features she knew too well. The Duke, Adrian Blackwood, Duke of Ashford. Her breath faltered. She had seen him once at the spring fete, surrounded by admirers, radiating a charm so natural it felt cruel. She had admired him then as one might admire a distant star. Beautiful, unreachable, safely irrelevant. And now here he stood, in her father's modest, fading home, while she wore the worst dress in the county. Captain Harroway bowed deeply. "Your Grace, an honor beyond measure." But the Duke did not linger on formalities. His gaze moved to Eliza almost at once. The look was brief, polite, but in that fleeting instant she felt exposed, as though every patch in her dress, every insecurity she had ever disguised, stood illuminated before him. She curtsied, praying her trembling knees would obey. "Miss Harroway," he said, voice smooth as warmed honey, "I believe we have crossed paths before." The words unsettled her more than silence would have. "Your Grace is generous to remember." Something unreadable flickered in his dark eyes, gone before she could grasp it. Her father launched into a recitation of naval acquaintances, desperate to impress, while Eliza stood just behind him, trying to make herself smaller than she already felt. The drawing room itself seemed ashamed. Its once elegant wallpaper sagged in places, its rugs dulled by years of wear. Even the fire burned low, as if wary of revealing too much. Yet the Duke's presence filled the room, lending it a gravity it had never possessed. Occasionally his gaze returned to Eliza. Each time, she felt it like a fingertip tracing the outline of a bruise, gentle, but aware of the pain beneath. She held her hands together to steady them. When the housemaid brought tea, her disdain was poorly disguised. Her muttered comment, "She looks hardly fit to serve, let alone host," slipped through the air like a poisoned needle. The Duke heard. Eliza saw the subtle tightening of his jaw. Shame crawled up her throat. To distract herself, she lifted the tray, but her sleeve caught against a chair, tipping the balance. A cup wobbled precariously. She gasped, but the Duke's hand was already there, steadying the tray with quiet strength. "Allow me," he murmured. Their eyes met. The moment was small, impossibly small, and yet it unfurled inside her with startling intensity. Heat climbed her neck. She stepped back at once, murmuring her thanks. Her father did not notice. He had just been handed a sealed document bearing the Ashford crest. The bold red wax looked ominous against his shaking fingers. Eliza watched his expression shift from curiosity to alarm as he broke the seal. "Father," she whispered. He did not answer. His eyes darted from the letter to the Duke with a mixture of dread and supplication. Something was wrong, terribly, undeniably wrong. Her pulse quickened with a bewildered dread. She knew her father had fallen into debts after her mother's illness, debts he tried to shield her from, though she sensed their weight in every frayed curtain and delayed repair. But she had never imagined those troubles might reach the attention of a duke. The room whispered with old secrets. The Duke stepped closer, not enough to break propriety, yet enough that she could read the gravity in his expression. "Before I entered your home today," he said, "I understood certain obligations rested upon me. Yet meeting you here, in this place that bays the echoes of both hardship and resilience, I find myself questioning matters I once believed settled." His words were tantalizingly vague, offering no clear comfort, no clear threat, only implication. Eliza's breath trembled. Her father, pale and rigid, seemed to shrink into the chair behind him, as though bracing himself for impact. The silence throbbed between them like a warning, and Eliza realized, with a sensation like cold water down her spine, that whatever truth approached would not merely brush her life, it would alter its entire course. The drawing room, once a place of polished afternoons, now lay heavy with the dread saturating Captain Harroway's posture. Eliza stood rigid, heart lodged in her throat, while the Duke's presence altered the air itself. Whatever business tethered him to their estate hovered like a storm yet to break. Captain Harroway folded the letter with hands not entirely steady. "Your Grace," he murmured, "such obligations are not small. I ask only for time." Adrian Blackwood's gaze remained composed. "Time, Captain, is a luxury debts seldom grant." His attention returned to Eliza. "Forgive such indelicate matters, Miss Harroway." She curtsied. "One must meet reality as it comes." The door opened. Mrs. Addison swept in with her daughters. Their chatter died upon seeing Ashford. After exaggerated curtsies, their eyes pounced on Eliza's faded dress. The Duke stepped closer. "Miss Harroway carries grace despite circumstance." "You misjudge me kindly," she whispered. "Truth needs no flattery," he replied. A servant passed. China rattled. Eliza reached, sleeve snagging, nearly disaster. But the Duke steadied the tray, his hand closing over hers. He retrieved a handkerchief, linen white, stitched with the Blackwood raven, and offered it to her. A murmur rippled through the room. "You can," he said as she hesitated. Eliza sat apart, clutching the token like both shield and snare. Her father, called away, left her exposed. The Addison sisters descended. "Quite the triumph," Clara breathed. "A duke's attention, though it cannot last." Eliza steadied her voice. "Attention is not achievement." Mrs. Addison appeared. "Impertinence from one reliant on charity is unwise." Eliza held the woman's gaze. The handkerchief warmed her fingers. The Duke approached. Mrs. Addison hid her malice. "Your Grace, we hear rumors of your engagement." The word struck Eliza hard. "Rumors often stray from truth," he said. "But Lady Fairfax is a treasure," Clara insisted. Mrs. Addison purred. "Suitability matters." Still watching Eliza, he answered softly, "I grow weary of what is merely suitable." Eliza rose. "Excuse me." He moved, then halted, propriety taut around him. Her father reappeared, voice tight. "Return it. We cannot risk offense." She extended the handkerchief. "Your Grace, I believe." "No," he said. "It belongs with you." The room froze. Mrs. Addison recovered first. "Affections can be misinterpreted. I assure you, I harbor no illusions." Adrian studied her, as if the denial stung. Captain Harroway tried calm. "Perhaps our guest requires refreshment." The Duke tolerated the fuss briefly, then returned to Eliza. "Might I trouble you to show me the gardens?" The season has rendered them bare. Even the barest garden holds truth. They stepped into the corridor, watched by hungry eyes. The hallway was dim. "You risk attention," she whispered. "Attention is not my concern. You are." She stayed, stunned. "Your father's difficulty places you in a precarious position. You? Powerless. There are prisons built of expectation," he murmured. Footsteps. The Addisons again. Instantly, the Duke straightened. Miss Harroway was showing me the gardens. Eliza withdrew her hand. Dinner will be ready shortly, her father said. Excellent, Adrian replied. I trust Miss Harroway will be seated near me. Her breath stalled. Mrs. Addison gasped. A low rumble of thunder shuddered through the walls. Candle flames jittered in warning. Rain scent crept cold along the corridor. You think me reckless, he said. Not reckless. Misguided, she countered. You believe I have not chosen my direction. You cannot choose what society forbids. Then society is a poor author. He stepped closer. They will twist meaning whether the gesture exists or not. Another roll of thunder. He offered his hand. May I? She stepped back. You should return. Before whispers become ruin. Whispers already circle us, he said. The question is whether we bow to them or make them true. The corridor door opened. Mrs. Addison's triumphant smile. We feared you had wandered. They followed her back to the drawing room, carrying the storm between them. As dinner was announced, Adrian spoke quietly, promise unmistakable. Tonight, let the whispers come. Eliza's pulse thudded as they entered. The drawing room seemed smaller now, every gaze ablaze. She felt the handkerchief, daring her to believe it meant more than courtesy. Hope was treacherous. Yet as she glanced at Adrian across the room, hope returned, reckless as flame. Her father sank into a chair. She crossed him. Papa, she murmured, you must not worry. He gave a brittle laugh. Worry is all that remains affordable. She squeezed his hand, wishing she could mend what life had torn. Adrian was watching them, not with pity, but tenderness. Mrs. Addison's voice cut through. Miss Harroway, your dress is a loose thread. Stifled giggles. Eliza lifted her chin. Then I shall be grateful it has not unraveled entirely. A soft gasp. Adrian's lips twitched, yet fear curled beneath her defiance. The storm clawed at the windows. Servants lit candles. Shadows multiplied. Miss Harroway, Adrian said, suddenly nay. She startled. He offered a steadying hand. You need not brave them alone, he said. I have braved worse, she replied. You should not have had to. The words struck. No one had spoken her struggle aloud. Mrs. Addison whispered to her daughters, plotting. Whatever they plan, Eliza whispered, we must not give them reason to believe. That there is reason, he finished. The air between them tightened, the unspoken like lightning. In the next room, the dinner bell chimed, shrill, a summons like fate closing in. The guests flowed toward the dining room in a current of silk and calculation. Eliza moved with them, but her mind churned. She could not decide which terrified her more, the scandal the Addisons hoped to ignite, or the possibility that Adrian might welcome the flames. Every glance he sent her direction sparked a response she could neither name nor tame. At the doorway, he slowed, letting the procession drift ahead. For one suspended moment, they remained apart from the world, bound by uncertainty and something impossible to dismiss. Eliza, he whispered, just her name, but it felt like a vow he had no right making. Rain drummed against the dining room windows as dinner stretched endlessly, each course a test of dignity Eliza feared she failed. Conversation fluttered like painted butterflies, brittle and false. Every glance seemed to measure her worth by fabric and fortune. The Duke sat to her right, close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence, yet a gulf of propriety kept them apart. His composure only heightened her disquiet. When dessert arrived, she rose suddenly, murmuring an excuse, and slipped from the table before hesitation could chain her in place. A corridor led her to the back door. Rain-washed air seized her lungs. She stepped into the winter garden, the storm drowning out judgment. Bare branches twisted like ink strokes against the sky. Her dress clung miserably to her skin. Shame clung worse. Hope had been foolish, thinking a duke's attention could mean anything but spectacle. Footsteps approached. She turned, already knowing. Adrian Blackwood emerged from the dark, coat glistening. You fled, he said softly. I had not thought you easily undone. I'm not undone, she snapped. Only weary of pretense. He joined her in the rain. Pretense of what? That I belong in that room. That I do not humiliate my father. That you. She faltered. It is unkind to offer kindness where it cannot lead. Is kindness what you think I offer? His voice carried a storm of its own. You must not make this harder. Tears threatened, rain disguising them. I know my place. He studied her face. Who taught you to see yourself so small? I will not be pitied, she whispered. Pity. He stepped closer. You think me capable of such condescension? I think you are a duke, she replied. And I am not. That is all you see, he said, low and fierce. But I see far more. Lightning briefly unveiled the truth in his expression, earnest, unguarded. I did not come merely to settle a financial matter. Your father sought my aid, yes, but I came for you. Her breath vanished. For me. I needed to see you again, he said, to confirm you were not a dream born of spring sunlight and stolen glances. Her heart ached with the danger of believing him. You misunderstand the walls that stand between us. It is only fear, he countered. It is society, she insisted. Class. Obligation. You cannot defy them without consequence. He looked up into the rain. I have lived shackled by expectation, every smile calculated, every alliance arranged. What is the value of power if I cannot choose whom I? He stopped himself, breath catching. Eliza feared the word he almost spoke. Desired it. Do not, she whispered. Do not say what must remain unsaid. But it is truth, he insisted. And truth, once felt, does not vanish because etiquette forbids it. You speak as though the strength of feeling could rewrite rules. It already has, he said simply. The world seemed to pulse around them. Her legs weakened. She steadied herself against a rosebush thorny frame. You risk everything, she murmured. And gladly, he replied, if the risk leads me to you. She tried to pull away from the hand he had taken. He held gently, no force, only plea. Eliza, he whispered, look at me. She did. It ruined her defenses. I fear myself when I stand near you, she admitted, voice shaking. My heart outruns sense. Does that not tell you something vital? That I am a fool, she said, half laugh, half sob. That you are alive, he corrected. His thumb brushed her cheek with reverence. Fear proves importance. Rain slicked his dark hair, softened his edges. He looked almost humanly breakable. She longed to lean into that vulnerability. You should not be here, she repeated, weaker now. And yet here I stand, he said, drawn by what I cannot ignore. You must name it, she insisted, or deny it. I cannot survive in uncertainty. Lantern glow flickered behind the windows, shadows searching for them. His voice dropped, a vow wrapped in rain. I want you, Eliza Haraway, not for duty or debt, but because you are the first person who has ever seen me. Not the title, not the fortune. Me. Silence fell, a ray piece inside the storm. She felt her heart open like a fragile bloom straining for light. I see you, she said. Too clearly. He leaned in, foreheads nearly touching. Warmth bled between them. His breath mingled with hers. A door slammed in the distance. Servants calling, reality reclaiming ground. Eliza recoiled as though burned. We cannot. We already have, he said. Then what becomes of us? She asked. We trust the fire we have sparked, he answered, even if others call it ruin. That ruin could destroy you, she breathed. That ruin, he said, such conviction in every syllable, may be the first thing I have ever chosen freely. Lantern light flashed from the house. Miss Haraway, a servant called. Your father needs you at once. Eliza stepped back, though her heart leaned forward. He caught her hand for one last stolen beat, their fingers speaking what lips could not. When he let go, the absence throbbed. She hurried toward the house, pulse wild, shoes slipping on wet stone. She did not look back until she reached the doorway. And then she did. He stood alone in the rain, watching her as though she were both salvation and precipice. Warm air swallowed her as she entered, but inside no comfort waited. Dread rose cold and swift. Whatever awaited her next would not be small. It would decide whether the wild hope between them could survive the weight of consequence, or be crushed beneath it. She wiped rain from her brow, though it did nothing to steady her. Her father's silhouette loomed ahead, rigid as stone, his posture a verdict. She wondered if the storm outside or the storm within would break first. With every step, she felt the echo of Adrian's touch, and fear tangled with desire, reminding her that one fleeting moment of courage could unravel her world completely. The grand ball at Somerset House unfolded like a silken tapestry, music swelling, chandeliers dripping with firelight, ladies gliding like blossoms carried by admiration. Eleanor stood near a marble pillar, hands clasped to hide their trembling, heart beating so fiercely she feared it might crack her ribs. Tonight, she had sworn to remain invisible, to watch from afar, safe behind the veneer of indifference she had learned to wear. She had not expected to see him again. Arthur Weston, the Duke who had stolen her breath in the garden, entered with a presence that commanded bows, curtsies, and a hush of reverence. Every jewel in the ballroom seemed to chase the glint of his gaze. Even from the corner of her eye, she sensed the force of his confidence, his power. Society leaned toward him, drawn as moths to a flame too bright to comprehend. And then his attention shifted, slowly, unmistakably, toward her. Panic fluttered beneath her ribs. She pushed deeper into the shadows, aching to be unseen. Her gown, simple lavender muslin repaired too many times, seemed painfully humble among satin brilliance. She wished she had worn gray or brown, anything forgettable enough to shield her. Her father's laugh rang across the room. "Your Grace, come, meet the true star of the evening, my ward, Miss Clarissa." Clarissa, perfect Clarissa, draped in gold, eyelashes fluttering like banners of conquest. She curtsied beautifully before Arthur, her smile a weapon polished to gleam. He acknowledged her with polite warmth, but his gaze slid past her to Eleanor, like a truth he refused to ignore. Clarissa noticed. Her eyes narrowed with quiet, simmering jealousy. Heat rushed to Eleanor's cheeks. She turned away, refusing to believe there was meaning in his look. She had lived too long with disappointment to embrace hope easily. Hope was a luxury for those whose futures were secured, for young women with dowries and mothers who pulled destiny's strings with jeweled hands. She had scarcely taken 3 steps when a familiar voice found her. "Miss Eleanor." His voice, rich, restrained, undid her resolve. She froze. Arthur approached, every movement purposeful yet proper. His hand did not touch her, yet she felt its nearness altering the air. The scent of rain lingered faintly around him, as though the memory of the garden still clung to his coat. "I thought you might have left," he said softly. "I feared my candor may have frightened you." Her breath caught. "Fear is not what you inspire, Your Grace," she answered, though she wished she sounded stronger. "It is confusion. Why should you trouble yourself with me?" He studied her like a puzzle with a rewarding solution. "The heart is often wiser than one's station. Mine offers counsel I can no longer ignore." His tenderness sparked a dangerous thrill. But before she could reply, silk and perfume swept forward. Lady Beatrice, eyes sharp as pins. "How curious," Beatrice declared, voice loud enough for nearby guests to pause. "The Duke conversing with, well, Miss Hale. Charity does take amusing forms." Cruel laughter rippled. Eleanor's spine stiffened, pride barely holding. Every insecurity she had buried clawed upward with venomous force. Arthur's jaw tensed. "Lady Beatrice," he replied coldly, "Miss Hale deserves courtesy equal to any lady present. Mind your manners." Gasps followed. Several guests exchanged wide-eyed glances. No one contradicted a duke, yet they thirsted for the spectacle. Beatrice smiled thinly. "Of course. Will you extend such courtesy to every orphan under a benevolent roof?" "Admirable generosity, Your Grace." Orphan. The word struck like a blow. Memories, lonely beds, unanswered tears, flashed behind her eyes. Her throat constricted. Arthur turned fully to Eleanor, refusing to acknowledge the whispers swirling like wasps. "May I have the honor of this dance?" The music paused. The room waited, breathless. Accepting would ignite scandal, perhaps destroy her. Refusing might break something already fragile in both of them. She curtsied. "If you insist." "I do," he said simply, conviction shining through restraint. Music resumed, strings stirring like a rising heartbeat. Eleanor placed her hand in his. Warmth flooded her arm. His touch was steady, as though he could anchor her to earth while the world conspired to pull her apart. As they waltzed into the center of the room, whispers sharpened into daggers, fans fluttered like wings of vultures circling scandal. Still, his gaze anchored her against every cruel current. For a moment, they belonged solely to each other, her breaths measured by his nearness, her fears dissolved by the press of his palm. "You must not damage your reputation," she whispered. "This will cause you grief." "Let grief come," he murmured near her. "You are worth every peril." Her heart nearly betrayed her with joy. Yet dread lingered. Love felt too bright to survive scrutiny. The dance ended. Applause came hesitantly, approval withheld. He bowed with a reverence that defied judgment. She curtsied with trembling grace, knowing this moment would be carved into every whisper by dawn. Then a servant rushed to her father with a sealed notice. The banker's face blanched, draining of every trace of dignity. Clarissa gasped. "No, father, say it is not true." Guests leaned in, hungry for the newest misfortune. Her father's hands shook as he stared at the message. His voice broke. "The bank, ruined. Everything is gone." Eleanor swayed. Penniless. Again, the ground lurched, leaving her weightless in terror. Arthur stepped toward her instinctively, eyes fierce with protectiveness, but her father seized her wrist, grip sharp with fear. "Do not cling to him," he hissed. "No duke wants a pauper." Humiliation flooded her, scalding. Arthur looked ready to defy every cruel word, but her father dragged her from the light, from the only hand that had ever reached for her willingly. Arthur remained in the golden center of the ballroom, powerless to stop her retreat, and Eleanor's heart finally understood. Love might bane brilliantly, yet still leave one in ruin. She felt the music continue without her, each note a reminder that joy belonged to others, and she was being escorted back into a life of fear and quiet despair. Alone, unseen, forgotten, Duke Adrian Blackwood arrived at Harroway Manor before dawn, driven by a single truth. He would not lose Eliza Harroway to despair or loveless arrangement. Rain clung to his coat, boots soaked with mud, yet he crossed the threshold like a man marching into battle, breath tight with urgency. In his mind he still saw her, the girl forced from the ballroom, humiliated, terrified, carrying dignity like a fragile candle against the wind of gossip. No power on earth would allow that to be her fate. Mr. Harroway met him in the foyer, eyes red from sleeplessness. "Your Grace," he said bitterly, "we are already in enough disgrace without a duke adding reckless promises." Adrian steadied his voice. "Then permit me to remove the cause of disgrace. I have come to claim the woman I love." The words landed with the weight of judgment. A servant gasped. Harroway's posture faltered, pride shaken. "Love?" he scoffed, though his voice broke. "Affection will not pay debts. Nor should debt decide her future," Adrian countered. "Eliza deserves freedom, not to be traded for your ruin." That struck deep, and Harroway turned aside, shame stiffening his shoulders. "She is upstairs," he murmured. "But I warn you, her heart is set on sacrifice." Adrian took the stairs two at a time, urgency burning through his calm facade. Eliza stood beside the window, wrapped in a worn blanket, as if the world had stripped her of finery and left only grace. Her gown from the night before lay discarded. She appeared smaller, breakable. Still, she curtsied when she noticed him. "Your Grace," she whispered, "forgive my appearance." The apology shattered him. He stepped close, voice soft yet fierce. "You owe no apology for surviving cruelty." She tried to smile, but pain cracked through. "My father's debts have grown teeth. Lord Fenwick will settle them in exchange for my hand. He will free us all, except me." Adrian took her hands, feeling their chill. "You think freedom lies in surrender. Eliza, you are not payment. You are not property." Tears gleamed, but she shook her head. "You do not understand. If I defy them, Their shame will swallow us. Better that I bear the ruin alone. The drawing-room doors burst open below. Fenwick's voice rose, triumphant. The contract is prepared. Eliza stiffened. Adrian's rage surged like storm tide. We will face him together, he vowed. She trembled. Adrian, you risk everything. He offered a wry smile. Everything is exactly what I would give. They descended to the drawing room. Fenwick stood smirking beside two legal men, as though society itself backed his claim. You are too late, he told Adrian. Her signature binds her destiny. Eliza flinched at the word binds. Adrian stepped in front of her. Destiny is not written on paper. Fenwick laughed. This household needs salvation. I provide it. You provide imprisonment, the Duke replied. Haraway hovered near the hearth, fear aging him by years. Your Grace, he pleaded, I cannot afford pride. Eliza's voice cracked with desperation. I will do as duty demands. Adrian turned to her, voice trembling with emotion. If duty demands your misery, then duty is a tyrant. Her breath stilled. Fenwick moved closer. Stand aside, Blackwood. The lady accepts her responsibility. Adrian took Eliza's hand with unshakable claim. No, she accepts me. All eyes widened. I will marry her today. I will settle every debt, and I will ensure no one dares speak her name with anything but reverence. Fenwick's face contorted into rage. You would tarnish your title for a girl who owns nothing. Adrian nodded. She owns my heart. Eliza's lips parted in astonishment. Fear and hope warred in her eyes. You do not know the weight of what you offer, she whispered. He drew her closer. Then let me carry it. Haraway stayed, torn between survival and guilt. We would be beholden to him, he muttered. Not beholden, Adrian corrected. Family. Eliza found her voice, fragile but resolute. Father, for once, allow me to choose. Haraway closed his eyes. If you choose him, scandal will follow. Then let scandal chase, Adrian said. We will outrun it. Fenwick slammed his cane against the floor. The law sides with me. The church will not wed you without consent. But as he spoke, a reverend, summoned earlier to sanctify Fenwick's victory, stepped into view. Adrian turned with a confident bow. Reverend, your services are required for a different union. Fenwick sputtered in disbelief. Adrian ignored him entirely, speaking only to Eliza. You are the finest truth in my life. Before God and every foe who would deny us, I choose you. Her tears spilled freely. For the first time since the ballroom, joy flickered through her sorrow. Then, she whispered, I choose you too. The Reverend stepped forward, voice steady despite the tumult. Fenwick raged, but his shouts merely proved how hollow his claim had been from the beginning. Adrian lifted Eliza's hand, guiding her before the Reverend. Let us vow ourselves now, while courage lights our way. Eliza nodded, trembling, radiant. Just as the Reverend opened his book to speak the sacred words that would unite them forever, thunder rattled the manor doors. They swung open, blasting cold wind through the room. A uniformed officer strode inside, scroll in hand, boots stamping authority across the marble. He announced with chilling formality, by order of the Crown, Duke Adrian Blackwood is to be taken into custody at once. Gasps filled the room. Eliza clutched Adrian's arm, refusing to let him be torn away. The officer, sympathetic yet unwavering, said, Your Grace, accusations of disloyal dealings with the Crown demand your custody. Fenwick's triumph returned like poison. How noble, he mocked. She chose a fallen man. Adrian met Eliza's terrified gaze. Storms pass, he whispered. My heart remains yours. The officer stepped forward with shackles. Eliza blocked his path, voice clear, newfound courage blazing. If you take him, you take me as well. We stand or fall together, bound by love none can break. Forever united.